Hello, Nathan Cianelli here, all cleaned up today in the midst of the COVID-19 outbreak to present to you my scholarly project, Virtual Prehistory, Exploring Early Cave Paintings. And before I dive into the project, I want to give a quick thanks to my mentor, Dr. Soren Matei, without whom this would not have been possible, and of course to the man who inspired the project in the first place, Professor David Williams. And with that, I will go ahead and jump into the project. The project began in January of 2019. I was taking an honors course taught by Professor Williams called For the Love of Animals, and in that class we evaluated man's relationship with animals through art, and we started with prehistoric man and cave paintings and worked our way up through history from there. For the final project for that class, Professor Williams had hoped that the class, using its varied skill sets, would be able to turn a physical space on Purdue's campus into this sort of recreation of a physical prehistoric cave, but unfortunately that just wasn't feasible. And so when he came to the class looking for alternatives, I suggested that we could make a virtual cave where we would not have these physical restraints. Unfortunately, I was the only computer graphics student in the class, so there wasn't a lot of excitement about that idea, but it was something that I was really interested in the more I thought about it, and so it's something that I decided to pursue independently. And so working with Professor Williams, I started drafting up this idea to create this prehistoric cave in virtual reality that would allow people to walk around and explore and just get a sense for what it might be like to see these cave paintings up close. Obviously, it's not one for one with reality, but still, I wanted to see how it could turn out. And so I moved forward with that project, and I knew I was lacking some skills on my own. I am not a traditional artist, so that was the first gap I looked to fill. I was able to find 2 art students within Purdue's computer graphics program, and they were kind enough to lend their help for this project, and they created all of the art and textures that you see in the caves, and they did a phenomenal job. That was Naomi Chandran was the lead artist. She did all of the wall textures that you see, so that is her incredible art, as well as some support on the props by Bruna Guedes. They both did a fantastic job. I gave them some guidance on what I was sort of looking for, and I gave them some references, primarily Chauvet Cave and Lascaux, and they took that and ran with it. And so we created this set of caves that people could walk around and explore in virtual reality. And it was definitely an interesting project and a good learning experience. But at the end of the day, it was essentially just a kind of walking tour of this cave. There wasn't anything really to interact with, and there wasn't anything to really learn. It was very experience oriented. And I held a showcase of that project at the end of the 2019 spring semester at the Honors College, which was successful, had lots of interest. People enjoyed exploring the caves, but like I said, there wasn't really anything to interact with or to learn. So when it came to the fall 2020 semester, my senior year, I knew I needed to do something for my scholarly project, and the problem was there were too many things I wanted to do, but thankfully by working with my honors advisor Danny, I was able to settle on an idea at long last, and I decided I wanted to further the development of this prehistoric cave project. I wanted to add some more educational elements to share some of the knowledge that I had picked up along the way through that class. Through my showcase in the spring 2019 semester, I had met Dr. Soren Matei, who would become my mentor for this project. He was kind enough to lend me some virtual reality equipment that he has in his VR lab in McCutcheon, and so I had met him through that, and he had expressed interest in the project and digital humanities in general, and so he was willing to come on board as my mentor for this project. And so working with him throughout this year, we talked a lot about what the user experience should be like. That was the big focus of what I was doing in development this past year, was really trying to make this more of an experience. Could it still be improved? Absolutely, but I am happy with where it ended up. I was able to add some interactable educational panels. They function very similar to web browsers, but when we were brainstorming these, Dr. Matei would ask me, what are the knowledge domains that you really want people to learn more about? And so I broke that down into something about the animal that was depicted there, something about the culture of prehistoric man, the techniques that they used to create these paintings, and I wanted to add in something not terribly relevant to prehistory, but I wanted to talk about conservation just because that's something that's important to me. I've always been so fascinated by animals. I felt that the conservation element would add a much needed, relevant little tidbit to the project for people who were experiencing it in modern day, of course. And so those were the 4 knowledge domains I wanted to, share with people. And so, of course, I did my research, did my reading up on that, and was able to come up with information to display for 6 of the species in the cave. And in the cave there are rhinoceros depicted, cave bears, aurochs, very similar to a modern day bull, lions. I wanted to include fish in the cave as well, although fish were not commonly depicted in caves. I'll pause here for a moment so that you can take some time just to observe the project itself. You can see some of the information that I presented in the video, but to answer one of the big questions, why did prehistoric people create cave paintings, I will just talk to that a little bit. So there's so much speculation about why people made these paintings and what they were for, and one of the best comments that I read was that all of the theories could have been true at one point or another, because we are talking about a time span of thousands of years when these paintings were being made. A very popular theory is that the cave paintings are shamanic, that it's sort of a religious ritual that shamans would use these paintings to communicate with the spirit world and the animal spirits. And these caves, which were very dark, dangerous places that could almost create these hallucinatory effects on people, were seen as a sort of veil between worlds. Besides the shamanic theory, there was also ideas that it could have just been art for art's sake, similar to modern day doodles. People were just bored and felt like drawing. Although that theory is rather unlikely, just if you consider how dangerous these caves were, and in some instances there were scaffolds even built just to create these paintings. Another theory is that it could have been a form of record keeping about animals that groups had seen, or they could have been used to teach younger members of a group what tracks would look like or what animals would look like while out hunting. Obviously, being hunter-gatherer people, they also just had animals on the mind, so it's not all that surprising to think that they would draw them at some point or another. The techniques that they used were varied, but generally they would spit the paint onto the wall or blow it through a crude tube, and to light their way through these caves they would actually use these crude stone hand lamps that you see in the video. And they would just find a rock that had a hollow in it or create one themselves, and they would actually just burn fat in that sort of bowl to light their way. Although I am done developing the project, I do hope it will go to future use at Purdue, either as an educational or recreational tool, or even just as another example of what can be done for an honors college scholarly project. But with that, thank you very much for your attention today and your interest in my project. I know I'm not accepting an Oscar right now, but there is a long list of people that I want to thank. So I'm going to do that now. First on that list is Dr. Soren Matei for mentoring me throughout this project and providing me access to his Purdue VR studio, which was immensely helpful. And of course to Professor Williams for inspiring me to do this project in the first place, but also just being an inspiration for me in my professional life as well. To Dr. David Whittinghill for allowing me access to work on this project in his Games and Innovation Lab in Conoy Hall. And a big thanks goes to my artist, Naomi Chandran, for her incredible artwork. She is amazing. And of course, for the support from Bruna Guedes. And I've got to thank my rubber ducks, Justin and Brantley. Brantley is actually part of the teaching staff here at Purdue. He's a graduate TA, and he is a phenomenal instructor, and if not for him, I wouldn't know anything about developing projects in Unreal Engine like this one. So thank you Brantley. And I need to thank a couple people who helped me finish up this project during the COVID-19 outbreak. To Ian Copenhaver, he is a great artist and was able to turn around a quick little art asset for me for this project. He did that hand lamp that you saw, so thank you for that, Ian. And a huge thanks to Austin Cottle. He was my dedicated VR tester during this time when I did not have access to campus resources, and without him I would not have been able to identify all the issues and get those fixed with this project in the past few weeks. And he also was generous enough to give some time to capture all the footage that you saw in this video today. And last but not least, we have my honors advisor, Danny Parsons, for keeping her cool when I came into her office in the fall semester saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for my scholarly project? So thank you, Danny. And finally, thank you, Dr. Moore, for providing this alternative presentation option in the midst of such a challenging time at Purdue. And with that, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for your attention today.